ref. Actually got the ball. Yes, good afternoon, Spurs fans. Welcome back to the channel with your boys, Dave and Stevie. No Dermot today. His missus is in hospital, so he's had to go and take care of her. So best of luck to Dermot and the missus. No Soren today. He's away this weekend. And Jack will be joining us in just a little while. He's just going to have some coffee and some breakfast. You know, it is 4 a.m. where he is, so we'll let him, get himself up to speed, and then he will be jumping on with us. But massive credit to Stevie. I know it's exactly very early where he is as well, but he's still out of bed here joining me today, as I'll be on my lonesome. So big up, Stevie. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's not that early, man. It's 7 o'clock here on the East Coast of the United States. But I'll tell you what, man, it's ridiculously cold out here, and of course, we're in the Great Lakes portion of the United States, so I'm sure that the lads over there across the pond in the North Atlantic are kind of dealing with the same thing, being perpetually cold. But that being said, being perpetually fired up because it is game day, and it is Spurs versus Brentford, a match where you would think that maybe Thomas Frank might have an advantage considering he coached that team for 8-9 years. But on the other side, they also know how to play Thomas Frank as well too. So it's a nice little chess match today.
Look, it's a big game today. I would argue, between either one of these teams, if they win, they'd probably go into the top half of the Premier League today. And the other half, the other sort of stays down the bottom half, and it could get worse. So I think it's a massive game today. Especially around Tottenham Hotspur with the atmosphere around the place. The question marks around the manager once again. Being fired around the place. And plus, we've got the worst home form in the Premier League. So it's an absolute massive game for Tottenham Hotspur today, to try and sort of build off the back of that Newcastle game. And I know the performance wasn't great, but where we are right now, searching for any positives, we've got to take what we can from that Newcastle game and try and build off the good from it. Now, of course, the onus is going to be on us to go at Brentford today. It'd be interesting to see whether we employ sort of tactics to be able to go and do that, or are we going to do what we usually do in the first half, look to contain the opposition and then try and catch them cold early in the second half. What I will say is, though, Brentford, although they're very good at home, beating the likes of Man United, Liverpool and all there, they do struggle on the road. So this is a perfect opportunity for Tottenham to try and resurrect some sort of home form today. But look, let's welcome some people in, and then we are going to talk about the atmosphere and that today, Stevie. We've got Kaz in the house. Good to see you. Says, let's go. We've got Dermot. Big up, lads. Let's get a win today. I really need the Spurs pick me up today. It's a massive game for Frank. Lose this, fans will go into meltdown. I'm going for a 4-0 win with Mrs. Tron saying 2-1. Big up, Dermot. Hopefully you and Dervla are keeping well, my man. Big up, Berto as well. Great to see you in the building. Hopefully you're keeping well. We've also got Wembley 1. Good to see you, Wembley. Haven't seen you around in a while. Afternoon, everyone. Whilst the win today is highly desirable, what I want to see most today is more of the battling spirit that that saw us come back twice on Tuesday night. If we bring that, we should be okay. Absolutely spot on. They never say die attitude, but the tactics Frank employs, I would argue, work away from home because the onus is on the opposition to come out and stuff like that. At home, it's a different story. We do have to set up differently, and I just wonder, will we do that today, Wembley 1, to be able to take the game to them? Logan THFC, good afternoon, fellas. Big up. Let's hope Frank can get it right today, and the players put in a decent enough performance to get a win. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Logan. And look, that's the thing. It's not all on Thomas Frank, right? Some of these players could... perform a hell of a lot better. Some of the mistakes we're being, some of the scenes, some of the sloppiness, some of the areas they're trying to play in. I think, Mo Kudus lost the ball solo in our own half. He Tuesday night. Pedro Porro tried a fucking back heel outside of his own box. Like, some of the stuff we're seeing from the players is brain dead, and it almost makes me question that carefree attitude. Do they want him gone? And if they do, they have no legs to stand on either, by the way, because they've had multiple different managers as well. So the pressure deserves to be on them as well. Big up, Kerry King. Good to see you. Afternoon all. Really not sure what to think about this one. If we don't get on the front foot straight away, it could go downhill fast. Come on, you Spurs. Well, I think at least trying to get on the front foot today will signal the right intention and hopefully get the fans behind them today. We've got Fantasy Matt Shane. Big up, lads. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. We've also got Dan Davenport. Hi, Dave, Steve. What did you think to the FIFA World Cup draw yesterday? Yeah, I mean, I had to laugh at the makeup award. They gave the president at the very beginning. That one gave me a bit of a chuckle, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
I'm okay with the draw. I think, if we get there, we get what is it? South Africa, South Korea, and Mexico. And I think if we get there, we'll get to play in that famous Aztec Stadium as well. So not a bad draw for Ireland, and I'd fancy getting out of the group if we Davenport. Steve, to you, how was your draw?
I will say this, that number one, I think England got a beautiful draw with really the only resistance coming against Croatia. So now it's actually, is England actually going to win these 3 group games? Are they going to settle for draws and make things tougher on themselves? Or are they actually going to be ambitious and actually get through that group? But I will say that Scotland got really, really hosed, man. Right. And I feel bad for, they haven't been to a World Cup in quite a bit. And I was really happy for the Scottish, my Scottish homies getting back into the World Cup. And of course they get that monstrous draw. But I will say this for the United States, that it is set up for them to win it, because even if a team like Turkey gets in through that playoff, all 3 teams the United States have played in 2025, a couple of them to very good results. So there is a lot of familiarity. And so you would probably assume that because of that, the United States are in a good position. But again, you actually have to go out there and do it. And unfortunately, the United States have had an absolute shambolic year and a half. So post World Cup 2022. So you never know how these things are going to play out.
I wouldn't write off Potch, getting it together for the
World Cup. I get it.
Dan, I just want to be there, Dan. I just want to get there for once, my man. Big yourself up. We've also got Ellie in the house. Hello, Dave and Jack. Big up, lads. Let's not do another Dr. Tottenham today. I don't think my nerves can take it, and my TV will be in danger. I think there's been many TV brokens this year, Ellie, watching some of Tottenham games. I would argue I think there's a lot of TVs on the shopping list for the Christmas list for Spurs fans this year at the end of the day. I just want to see us go at an opposition for once. I'm sick of this, Mayweather shit on the ropes, ducking and diving. I'm sick of it. I want to actually be proactive. I want to be Mike Tyson today.
One of the things that I'm tired of seeing is Spurs respect their opponent at home a little too much. And from it, they set up in a very conservative position to the point where they throw away a first half without any type of resistance. And then they put themselves like in a 25-minute window in the second half to try to pull one back or try to pull out a result. And it just doesn't work. Like, I'm tired of seeing this. Like, it's like you're at home. This should be a place where you actually release the handbrake and you go for it. And you put teams to the goddamn sword. And instead of this, we're seeing this crazy, tippy-tappy football in the back without any type of forward movement. And it's got to stop. It's absolutely got to stop.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, my man. Couldn't agree more. Let's welcome a few more people in, and then we will crack on. We've also got J-Mac in the house. Big up, Davey, lad, and Steve. Come on, you Spurs. Good to see you. We've also got Prince Freyna in the house. I'm going to the game today. I'm worried. I think 1-1, I hope. I'm scared, Dave. Come on, you Spurs. Well, look, what I will say, Vince, is I'll get the nervousness going to the ground 100%. You're one of the lucky ones going today, so hopefully we can turn it around, get a good win for you, my man, and hopefully a good performance as well, Vince. But whatever happens, try and get in full voice behind it so that at least when the game is over, the likes of the players and the manager can't come after us and blame us for yet another something else that goes wrong. So get the full voice out today and go and enjoy yourself, my man. And make sure you get to chicken or something like that and get a good burger in, my man. Big yourself up. We've got Harmless Spud in the house. Big up, Dave. And Steve, great to see you. We've got MKP. We need positivity. 100%. But I would argue we need positivity on the pitch. At the end of the day, I can sit here and I could chirp my lips off about how wonderful we are as a football club. It certainly ain't going to affect the result today. I could tell you that now. But big up, MKP. By the way, you're usually the person in charge of the likes. So, let's get going, my man. Big up, MKP. We've also got Iceman in the building. Good to see you, Iceman. Hopefully you're keeping well, sir. We've also got Elias in the house, struggling away from home. Means nothing in recent history in mind. Absolutely fair point. Tommy Skunks, big up Dave and Steve. Whenever we have a match, I feel excited. But this manager, I don't feel excited. Even once, look, I get it. The football doesn't exactly get you pumped up for games. I think the fact that it's so easy to get a ticket for this early in the season for a lot of these games probably suggests a lot of Spurs fans are feeling like that maybe it's not worth going to watch and stuff like that. So, look, at the end of the day, we're at home. I just want to see us take a game to the opposition today. Brandon, good to see you. Best pre-match there is. Love the show and the channel. Come on, Spurs. Big up, Brandon. Really appreciate the support, sir. We're going to take a couple more comments, and we're going to check in with Jacko and see how he is. He's done me a massive favor today, by the way, this morning. We've got Limpy down under. If we lose today, Frank is officially not the manager he was made out to be. Fair point. Sonny says, big up the show and the chat. All I ask is for the players to play for the shirt today, and hopefully that will be enough for the 3 points. If they don't, Thomas Frank's position must be in jeopardy, and I think it will be. Look, after this, we've got Palace, Liverpool, difficult enough Premier League games coming up. So we've got to win today. There's no hiding place. Shushant Bashar, good to see you, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well, my man. Make sure we're not missing anyone. Kate Rixton is also with us. I'm worried about this match unless we start on the front foot. I think many Spurs fans are, Kate. I think, like I said, I keep saying, with Thomas Frank, he has to adjust that style of football. Spurs fans will not tolerate what he's currently doing, and he needs to realise this and take the handbrake off. Big up, Jose Swad. You enjoy the match, sir. You have a great day out. You seem to be going to a lot of matches lately, Jose. You must have snuck in a season ticket. Let me know. You've also got Fitz in the house as well. Put Romero up front. Come on, you Spurs. I mean, look, there's a conversation to make Romero and Van de Ven the two up front with how poor we've been going forward, my man. Good to see you. As ever, we have the resident happy clapper, Leighton Evelyn, in the house. Good to see you. He's gone with a draw today, so that means he must have got out the right side of the bed. Big up, Leighton. Good to see you. And then we also have AJ in the house, Aussie Spurs. Great to see you as well. Hopefully you're keeping well. Along with Ange Ball as well. Good to see you, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well. As fans, we have to be brave and confident, because if we can't be confident, how can we expect our players to play with the confidence to dare us to do? In Frank we trust. Come on, you Spurs. Fair enough. Fair enough. Look, that's different fans see it different way, I suppose, don't they, my man? But good to see you. And we also have RM in the house. Says, got to start playing through the middle, lads. Look, got to start playing through balls. We're bottom of that table by a
dead last.
Mile. Dead last. All Frank wants to do is cross a ball or, put throw-ins into the box or corner kicks. We have no other game plan outside of that. It's absolutely shocking and cannot continue. But look, Jacko, before we get into it, first of all, thank you so much for getting out of bed. Really do appreciate that. It's just that time of year. Everyone else is busy, so I had to get you out nice and early, so I appreciate it.
No, I was planning on being a celebrity guest about an hour into it, just when I started to get the coffee going, but I should have checked in with you and see if you need to make it a front three, but I'm pretty sure you and Stevie are a good front two, so you would have been able to handle it until I got here. But good to be here. I mean, I'm probably glad I'm getting up early because, to be honest, Dave, I think we know it's a slightly stressful one, this game, because it does feel, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I said so. I think this whole week, maybe people think I'm being dramatic, but I do think this is very much a must-win game for this fan base, for these players, and of course for this manager. And probably good that I actually got up a little sooner rather than later, just so I can prepare myself mentally for what's to come.
Yeah, just get yourself ready for what's to come.
Get warmed up.
I absolutely love that. But also, just quickly to the members out there, sorry, no members preview yesterday. Look, it was my sister's birthday. I had engagements. Jack also had engagements with the dad yesterday as well. So, unfortunately, couldn't get it done, but we will get back to it then for the midweek game and stuff like that. So, just a quick apology to all you guys out there. You know the way it is coming up to Christmas and everything else like that. It's just... It's hard. Everyone wants a piece of you, right? You have to be there, here, there, and everywhere, dragged all over the place. Sometimes I'm like, just fucking leave me alone. Anyway,
it must be hard being YouTube celebrities, man. Let me tell you, you guys are just everybody wants a piece of you, man.
Do you know
it's
what,
unfortunate
Steve?
when your own family members don't.
Yeah, I probably prefer if it was people that, if we were celebrities and people were pulling us all over the shop to do this, that, and the other. But it's not. It's just, life, unfortunately. Life, my man.
I know what you mean.
But look, let's get straight into it, boys. I mean, we need to talk about the sort of atmosphere we're going to see today, because the one against Fulham was pretty bad, pretty dismal. There was a lot of fallout off the back of it. I mean, look, Stephen, we're back on home turf today. I mean, what kind of atmosphere are you expecting around the stadium, especially after Thomas Frank's comments and Pedro Porro's remarks after the Fulham match, where he suggested some Spurs fans aren't true Spurs fans for booing. So, I mean, those who booed are probably going to get butt hurt by that and probably double down on it today or something like that. So, I mean, how do you think the atmosphere is going to be in general around the place today? Because to Jack's point, and, the reason why he also got up early, it's a massive day for this club today.
I like the word I think is probably apprehensive. I think Spurs fans have no choice but to be, because again, you were mentioning earlier just a few minutes ago about Brentford's road record. But that being said, it also shouldn't be forgotten that Fulham absolutely were absolute dog shit on the road coming into the lane, and they absolutely put us on us within the first 15 minutes, and because of it, the game was pretty much over by the time we hit the 30th minute, right? And so from that standpoint, I would probably assume a lot of Tottenham Hotspur fans, and I don't want to speak for Spurs fans, but I can tell you that that's the way that I feel, because I have no idea what type of team that we are going to see. On top of the fact that we're coming off a bad performance against Chelsea, I would probably say that maybe I'm in the minority that thinks that that performance at St. James Park was absolutely dog shit as well too. And if it wasn't for the two shots, by the way, the two shots that we managed all freaking game in that performance, it just so happens that they went in. Thank goodness for Romero that we were able to essentially steal a point on the road. But for that being said, for a large chunk of that performance, it was absolutely horrendous. And from that standpoint, now all of a sudden we're coming into a match where they know exactly how Thomas Frank is going to set up. They know exactly what his in-game substitutions are probably going to look like. They know exactly what the tactical switches are going to look like. But mainly, they know exactly, just like every other team in the Premier League knows how to beat this team. And all you have to do is apply pressure, because he's not going to make the simplest changes to relieve some of that pressure. It is going to be the exact same thing where, he's going to keep two midfielders deep along with his back line. Ball is going to spread out wide. It's either going to be Udogie or Porro. The press is going to hit the ball, and all of a sudden, either the ball is going to go backwards, or there's going to be a long shot down the pitch, to try to essentially try to squeeze one into Kudus or Richarlison or Kolo Muani. And there's always going to be a double team, and we're gonna cough up the ball, and they're gonna have the ball in an advantageous position, and we're just going to continue to stay back, and this is going to play this way for 30 minutes, and it's going to frustrate Spurs fans that have paid X amount of dollars for those tickets. And what's interesting about this, as I was listening to you guys, I think it might have been on Monday or Tuesday. I think you're the guest that you had. I think it might have been a guy named Jack, and you were talking about the fan. The fan discomfort, or the fan, I guess you can say, what's the word I'm looking for? The fan unrest. Yeah, disconnect the fan. Yeah, the fan unrest, and it's like, well, it is earned, because you haven't given the fans a reason to show up to the ground and actually cheer this team on. It's like, don't get me wrong. I mean, a couple minutes ago there was the guy who said that we have to be confident as fans. It's like, confidence is at an all-time low right now. Right, it's hard to be confident knowing that every single week we have a different, formation or a different set of tactics, but we understand exactly how the first 45 minutes of the game is going to be played.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And from that standpoint, it's really hard. It's really hard for fans to show up and be excited for this. They're going to show up because they're Spurs fans. Of course, they're going to show up. They're going to pay the freight to show up because they've been doing it for 25 years. They're going to continue to do it. But at that standpoint, it's really hard to get behind a manager who says that they're not real Tottenham fans, and trust the system, and trust the system and trust everything. And it's like, well, okay, but we're also not blind too. We see it every single week. We see it, and it's really hard to trust the program and feel confident when we go an entire match with only 2 shots on net. And for the first 45, we don't even attack marginal backlines and goalies. Like we don't even have a goal threat. And when your top 3 scorers are defensive players, yeah, it really makes it hard to trust the program. So from that standpoint, it's like you can understand the unrest and the disconnect.
And look, to that point, I think I get it, right? Look, and at the end of the day, right, every Spurs fan will go in and support the team how they want, and they'll do it differently. But, when it comes to, get confident behind the team, it's like, I think people forget that the signings we made this summer came with huge fanfare, fans behind them. The manager appointment we made this summer in the coaching team came with huge fanfare with a lot of fans behind them. But it's gone that tragically wrong. That's where people have fallen off. That's where the confidence has been eroded. At the end of the day, there was huge support behind this when it all came together. But given what we're watching, given the way results have been, that's where the confidence is being eroded. That's where people are jumping off left, right, and center. So it's not like Spurs fans didn't get behind this from the off. Frank was overwhelmingly the favorite, amongst the Spurs fans for the job. They wanted this guy in charge. So, I can I do understand, you got to back the team and you got to get behind it. I get it, especially from the first whistle. But I'd argue then it's over to the players and the team. I'm not being funny, but if that team sits back and respects Brentford for 45 minutes, like they've done for the last 4 games, by the way, the last 4 first halves of football, we haven't had a shot on target whatsoever. That just gets that automatically puts fans back into, because even if they rock up to the game, pump behind it. With the way the first halves are going, with what we're seeing, that automatically puts Spurs fans back into the thoughts they were having the night before heading up to the stadium and stuff. And, Tom, I'm not surprised because Thomas Frank sort of alluded to this before the Chelsea game. He said it himself. We need the fans for the first whistle. But then after that, it's up to our performance on the pitch to keep fans interested and motivated. And they don't do it because of the way we're set up, because of how lackluster we are. And I think that then leads to the stadium then all of a sudden becoming into one big melting pot, because they're being told turn up with enthusiasm. They're doing that. And then all of a sudden, the first half, we're not even getting a shot on goal, home or away. It loses people along the way. More and more, they're like, I can't keep spending this money, giving up this time to watch this shit. And that's where people lose the confidence. It's all well and good saying, get behind it. There's nothing to get behind right now. There's no stats that are saying that this right now is trending in a positive direction. There's not even any stats out there that are going, do you know what? This could really kick on. If given a bit of time, there's nothing there. Everything is telling us where this is heading. What I will say, though, is a week can be a short time in football. Frank wins today, top half of the table, 1 draw, 1 win. All of a sudden, the pressure is off. Gives them a little bit more time moving forward, or state of execution. But in general, I get when people say, just get behind the team. But they've also got to give us something to get behind. At what point is the onus on them? When Pochettino was manager and everyone was working the bollocks off, the football was palatable and stuff like that, everyone was behind it. So it just goes to show it is up to what they do inside to get the fans along and buy into it. But what I will say is they had the privilege of that from the very beginning and lost it as the season's gone on. But anyway, Jacko, over to you, sir. Where am I? I mean, who carries the responsibility today to reset the mood? The players, the fans, the manager, and the staff. Who's it on today? Who's the onus on? Because at the end, there someone has to be big enough to park something, right?
I think it's actually mostly on the players, because this home form has carried on from last season. So I know Thomas Frank hasn't exactly improved it or changed it that much since coming into the job, but I think they would have to look at themselves in the mirror and realize that this has been going on for quite some time now. I think it was about a month ago, right? That it was on November 10th, November 11th, when that stat came out, that for basically 365 days or for an entire year straight, Spurs have had single-handedly the worst Premier League record at home. So that's a significant amount of time, right? That's a majority of last season carried on now into this season. So I would say it's actually majority on the players, because this trend has been here for a while now of just not showing up at home. It has been a different story away from home. And I think we've been slightly more tolerant of, let's say, the lackluster or just pretty boring football, because it has, for the most part, yielded results. We're still towards the top of the table when it comes to the away form, but at home, it's just so much worse, really, in terms of results. And just for whatever reason, like, the football has not been in any way better shape or form at home. So I think it's much more on the players for the question of motivation for getting themselves geared up for this game. I think it's so much more on the players than it actually is on the manager. I mean, of course, tactics will come into it, especially against better teams. I think tactics will come into it, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being ridiculous here, but I think it is only Brentford. Like, I know they've had a pretty decent spell so far this season, but it was kind of the same thing with Fulham for me, where I just felt like that's a very beatable team. As much as there is no easy game in the Premier League, yes, the tactics play a part, of course, but it is, in games like that, I think it is actually a lot just about the players and their motivation and their energy levels. And I think the same thing could be said about Brentford, to be honest.
And this is where I get a little bit concerned just quickly as well. I think Rooty Toot brings up a great point here. We've seen multiple reports now. There was one from the Telegraph after North London Derby suggesting that the players had already gone to Frank basically saying to stop respecting the opposition so much and give us a game plan going into these games on how we can hurt them. And then another report came out there, recently suggesting that the players that they're not happy with Frank changing things up right before the game. And so people can say, fans, you need to get behind it. You need to get behind these players. Well, if you're reading into reports, it's already suggesting that these players ain't having a manager. And when you look at some of the shit, like I said at the start of the show, Pedro Porro backheeling it carelessly around the box, Kudos soloing the ball in his own half, running through the middle and stuff. When you see that, very hard to get behind a group of players that look like they are not playing for the manager and don't want the manager. And at the end of the day, if these guys ain't playing for the manager, it doesn't matter how many Spurs fans turn up to that stadium and chant and sing and everything else. It really doesn't matter. If they're not having the guy, they're not going to perform or execute what he's asking them to do. And it's just that simple at the end of the day. And when this has been a culture that's been set inside Tottenham's dressing room for years, makes it very hard then for you to turn up and, really sing and everything else when you're questioning, are these players even playing? If them players ain't playing for the manager, like I said, it really doesn't matter how much support or chance or anything else you really get in behind it. But, I think this is a fair question here from Fudge Table. Just quickly before I get onto this, Jack, do you think a fast start would maybe sort of generate a good atmosphere today? Do you think it would sort of fix the atmosphere?
An early goal would definitely go a long way with this fan base. I think it would just settle the nerves a little bit because it's been more or less the opposite, I think, at home this season for the team. I think that's just been the issue, really, is that this season, I think I've really come to realize, as much as Dave, I'm probably a bit more tolerant of the terrible football than maybe other people are. Just for some reason, I'm probably a bit of a masochist or a bit of a sicko, and that I do kind of sometimes enjoy just watching.
It's bad when you're frustrated with what you want.
That's exactly.
It's bad.
Exactly. And I was going to get to the point that I think this season more or less has really told me how much Spurs fans really do value and take hold beautiful football, attack-minded football, because of the way that they've been reacting to these games at home. It's like, I think if we were just we're bang last, like you mentioned earlier, in so many stats, like when it comes to just the progressive play and whatnot, that it's been reflected in just how the fans have seen it. Like the fans are seeing it with their own eyes, and they're just not accepting it, to be honest. Even if we were getting results, I just don't know how much they would even tolerate it unless, the results were coming through. But unfortunately, it's some of the worst stats in the Premier League when it comes to attacking football, and it's some of the worst record, and it's the worst record at home. So I think just the fans themselves are just rightfully so just going into it with a very, very worrisome attitude, and I don't really blame them for it. So just getting an early goal would certainly go a long way, and just having a positive start to the game, I think, would certainly go a long way. I think the fans, especially at Spurs stadiums, they just seem to feed off of what the players are giving. If the players are giving a lot of effort, if they're showing endeavor, if they're creating nice combinations that wow the eyes and get us out of our seat, the fans get behind them, and you do hear them start to get loud and start to roar. If it's sideways, backwards, long ball football with no real plan or idea, you see them become quiet. I think we're a very reactive fan base to how the players are 100%. Playing. And I think that's fair, really, to be honest. I don't necessarily blame them because, like I said, for a calendar year, it's been the worst record at home of any team in the Premier League. So I think they are just going to react to what they're being given by the players.
Yeah. I also think there happens to be a little nostalgia behind it as well, too, because I think the last year, the last full season at White Hart Lane, I think we went undefeated at home as well, too. And it really was a fortress, right? And I even think our home record when we were at Wembley was pretty good as well, too. I think we only lost 3 home games when we were at Wembley. And so there is a change, there is been a massive change under the last couple coaches. And I think there's also a lot of frustration when it comes to it as well, too, because I think fans would be okay if there was, if it was reversed and our form was decent at home, but kind of iffy on the road. I think fans would actually be a little bit better with it. Just, me personally, I wonder if they're not used to the fact that we're
sorry, I think when you're an away fan too, like you're going into the Lions Den. I think that you are going to have to be under the cosh. You know that the opposition team is more expected to come out the gates and be sort of the aggressor. And I think if you're away from home, you just sort of have to muster up that confidence. You have to muster up that courage. It's not necessarily the case when you're at home. Like when you're at home, you do have expectations. You do have sort of the feeling that, okay, like we're supposed to be the team that's supposed to come out the gates quickly. We're like, to Dave's point, like, can we show a fast start today? How important is that? I think it's imperative for this game to just get that home crowd going, to get them started. If it starts out pretty lackluster, you'll see them sort of quiet down and start to sort of sip their sodas and their drinks and like just sort of talk to each other and just have that sort of nervous energy about them. If we come out the gates flying, I think you will really hear the fans see that and then sort of respond to it. But I think automatically, if you're away from home, like, I mean, of course, people who actually are the away supporters who go often probably would be able to say this better than me, but I think they would agree that you kind of have to just get yourself up. That's the whole point of being an away fan, is that you just sort of have to do it to save face and maybe just show that you are behind your team. Whereas at home, I do think rightfully so, it's a different story.
But on that though, just quickly, I actually don't like the way, and maybe it's not intentional, maybe that's just a bit cynical of me, but the way the away fans are being divided from the home fans in general. You know, it's like the home fans, we get ridiculed when things don't go right at home, but then as soon as we play away, they're praising the away fans. And that's not to say they don't deserve praise. You know, it takes massive commitment, money, and everything else to be able to get to all these away games, and much credit to them. But I don't like the way it's starting to happen, where it's like, by doing that, you're almost creating a divide between those who go away and those who go to home, and the worldwide Spurs fan base in general. And I do not like that, you know, and what I'm seeing, to be honest with you, in that regard. I think it's only going to make it more fractured moving forward if that's the case. But look, let's take a couple more comments, because we do have a lot to talk about. Of course, we are going to talk about what this game means for Thomas Frank's future. We're also going to talk a little bit about the forward line, because I've got a few stats and it does not make for good reading. And I've argued from the very beginning of this fucking appointment with Thomas Frank, he has to get that going. That was his biggest objective coming in here. I was going to help this guy succeed, and he has completely failed. And we're going to have a decent, interesting talk about Shavy Simons, by the way, actually, because there's been a good stat ban in Brown midweek, and I think it makes for interesting reading, to be honest with you. So we're going to have a conversation around him. We've got this from Dermot question to the panel. For me, Frank has to prove he can do the job. For me, the players are looking like they're giving up on can Keith Andrews play on that, or does Frank go for broke? Look, to me, I think in general, it's not about Frank going for broke. It's, can you bring a better palatable, you know, brand of football to the Spurs fan base? I think most of us will understand the way we played against Newcastle midweek. A lot of our home games are going to be like that. But what we can't tolerate is when the onus is on us at home, Dermo, where we have to be brave, where we have to go after them. I mean, Thomas Frank is constantly asking for the fans to be brave. Well, fucking you be brave. How about that? How about you actually show some bravery in terms of your team selection and the way you approach home games and stuff? Big up, Dermo. And what I will say is, it's not going to be an easy game today. These guys know Frank's tactics, the way he is, and mindset and everything else inside out. The advantage is on them to a certain degree in terms of being able to take advantage of this today. We will take this from Fudge Table 1, like I promised. Are we all overreacting at this point? I know there's going to be people straight out there. Yes, you are, you melts. Calm down and stuff like that. But in general, I mean, one of you, do you think we're overreacting?
So here's the thing. I don't mean to be a curmudgeon, right? It's in my DNA. I was brought up in Seattle, Washington, spending multiple years rooting for a baseball team that constantly absolutely breaks your heart every single year. And when I became a Spurs fan way back in the day, it seemed like I was kind of repeating the cycle, right? So unfortunately, it just is what it is, man. I just look at the way my mind works, man. I just look at patterns, right? And the thing about it is that it's not necessarily Thomas Frank himself. It's not necessarily that. It's just every single week that I see this football team play, there's consistent things that continue to happen, and it does not seem like things have been improving, right? I think you mentioned just a couple minutes ago, right? If there were certain underlining stats that actually showed that there might be something that is going to click and eventually this team is going to play on, I think there would be, I think there would be more excitement. But the fact of the matter is, we continue to put ourselves behind the 8 ball for no reason at all. On top of the fact that our 50 million plus signing has been nowhere near the starting 11 the last 6 weeks, right? So from that standpoint, I like at the end of the day, it's like, I like there is a need to overreact, because the more that we end up losing these type of games, the farther down that we're going to get into a position where something is going to have to break, because the last thing this team can afford is to finish 17th again or put themselves in a relegation scrap when otherwise they have the players to suggest otherwise. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like the only by the way, we should have been relegated last year on 38 points, and it just so happens that 3 teams were far worse. Any other year, we probably would have been in a relegation scrap. It just so happens we were able to avoid it. And that's and that's my biggest worry, that things get to a point through the month of December, to the point where we don't have a win. We have like a draw or 2. And now all of a sudden we get to January 1st and the window opens and we're in 15th place or 16th place. And now all of a sudden we have an uphill battle just to try to get to 10th. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's my biggest issue. That is my biggest issue. And listen, Is it overreacting to an extent? But that being said, it's like, again, it's not the manager, it's the patterns of play in which this team plays that do not give me any hope in this game or moving forward.
The problem for me around at the minute, I think in general, is is the fact it's the divisive nature of everything. I think it's honestly when it comes to Frank, for instance, people say it's not working. The next rebuttal by people is, well, we're not 17th though. It's like, but where's the standards at this football club gone? Forget people in either camp for, the previous manager or this manager or whatever. Forget about all that. It's about fucking Tottenham Hotspur as a football club. And at the end of the day, being in the bottom half of the table wasn't acceptable last year. It shouldn't be acceptable this year. I'm absolutely fed up with the point scoring between who prefers who manager and trying to point score in between each other and stuff. It does absolutely no justice whatsoever. And I'm sick of that. I've heard it so many times. Oh, but we're not 17th yet. And it's like, so you're like, your whole thing about getting rid of the previous guy was because the standards and what was set wasn't acceptable. But yet we're accepting this because we're a few places above that. I'm not fucking having it. I'm sick of it. Just judge it on what we're seeing right now in front of our eyes. To be honest with you, none of it makes for good reason. But we got to stop the fucking point scoring. I'm absolutely fed up with that one. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't do this club any good going forward. It doesn't do the fan base any good going forward. Just judge it on what we're seeing currently and stop all this point scoring. Ange Ball says if you were scared to do something, you were more likely to do it. If you have people cheering you on, then not having them simple cheer your team on if you want them to win. Absolutely spot on. But like I say, if the players don't want the guy in charge and they're already questioning his methods, it really doesn't matter how much cheering you do if they're prepared to throw the guy under the bus. But I do understand in general the cheering, getting behind the team. We've got Steve's. I thought someone was telling you to take a smoke break.
Yeah. No, it was. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I was reacting to Iceman right there.
Oh, but look, this is what Spurs do to us, right? We all get heightened, we all get stressed, we all get fucking, this because we love the club at the end of the day. It comes from a good place. Scotty Hynam, good to see you, sir. Hopefully you're keeping well. Also, my man from Newcastle, I say you were delighted with the draw the other night as well. He says, afternoon, Davey Boy, Jack, the hat, and everyone else. Good to see you, my man. We've also got Colin, ban our home fans, and just let our away fans in. Well, I think home fans are starting to ban themselves at this point, Colin. They're not going to the games. I can't turn up for this shit.
One of the best comments I saw yesterday, I think on the panel show or on Thursday, was just let the Spurs players wear Brentford jerseys, and then all of a sudden, we'll be playing much better, which I thought was brilliant.
Brilliant. We got Davy Clark at home. Good evening, Davy, or good morning, afternoon. Sorry, Davy. Good to see you. At home, Spurs have allowed opponents to play themselves into the game because we have started so slowly. So Spurs, as players, have to beat their chest from the kickoff and go at our opponents. Absolutely spot on, Davy Clark. Look, there's some things, no matter how much they introduce into football, there's some things that just don't change, like the onus being on the home team to go at the opposition and stuff like that. Q7, afternoon, everyone. I like Frank, but to be honest, this is a must-win for him. The pressure will increase in a toxic way if he doesn't, and the performance is just as important. Well, we're going to get onto that now in just 2 minutes, Q7, but good to see you in the building, sir. Hopefully you keep him well. We've also got free speech Fiona in the house. Our home form is relegation form, along with our attacking stats, by the way, as well, which doesn't make good reading. Rob Spurs, it's about how patient the fans will be. We've been seeking for short-term fixes for a long time. To be honest with you, I get what you're saying, Rob, but it's not the fans that sack the manager. It's the board. And at the end of the day, the board have set that culture. They hire and fire managers every 2 years, you know, for the terms of how long Enoch have been here. Their turnover manager is every 2 years. So I'd argue it's them seeking the quick fix rather than fans. And I understand giving a manager time. I just feel like we're giving the wrong guy time. There's no evidence that if we throw money behind this guy, all of a sudden he's going to be able to get Tottenham up there competing. He doesn't have that on his CV. You've got to question why Chelsea backed out of not bringing him in, even though Man United have been absolutely dismal, just as bad as us, if not worse, over the last few years. Why they didn't opt to bring him in after speaking to him and stuff like that. And if these clubs don't bring him in, I think you've got to ask the question, why? And at the end of the day, us fans, we only react to what we're seeing. At the end of the day, we hold standards around this football club. We're here before any of that squad. We're here before any of that manager and coaching team, and we'll be here after. So it is up to us to make sure they know what the standards are of being at this football club. And right now, every single one of them is falling below it. And that's why they're hearing it. Fans will make their frustrations heard, no doubt about it. But it's the board that pulls the trigger, my man, not the fans. Whereas we've got Rooty too. We'll take a couple more comments. We'll crack on. He says, it's not good that the board has been silent throughout the first phase of the season. If they're easily going to change the culture, they need to be more transparent. Well, it's interesting because usually when the board did come out, it used to be that old dreaded vote of confidence, sort of put more pressure on the manager and stuff. But at the same time, Arsenal board came out and sort of, helped Arteta along the way, right? Helped the buy-in with the fans and stuff like that. But what I will say is, it wasn't just because they gave him time. Arteta won an FA Cup. Arteta got rid of the likes of players who were taking the piss out of the club, not dedicating themselves and stuff like that. Turned around, brought some academy products through, gave them the opportunity. He done things to justify that time. Pochettino, when he came to Tottenham, done certain things to justify that time. For instance, Adebayor wouldn't do what he wanted him to do. No problem. Off you go. Let's start bringing up. And there was loads of other players. Let's bring up the academy kids. See, like Walker and Rose, he's been loaned out. Let's bring them back in. Let's see what they can do. Will Frank do that? It'd be interesting to see Rooty too. Mm-hmm. We also have Tim Wallong in the house. He says, Tim. I don't know. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name, Tim. I do apologize. We're just going to call you Tim. Lose this game and the crowd will erupt. The turgid performance will seem the players booed off too. This isn't for Frank. All or nothing. No win here. And he won't be our manager next week. Slow jam rod afternoon, guys. Come on, Tottenham. Let's have a really good performance today. Kieran's in the house. Hello, Dave and Jack. Everyone, happy Christmas to everyone except Arsenal. They can F off. Absolutely love that, Kieran, my man. Love that. We've also got Nick from Venn in the house. Need to turn up, get the win, and quieten everything down. And then Ange Ball says, if you were to work for Elon Musk, you wouldn't be questioning him constantly. Would you? Don't do it to Frank. Appreciate. What I will say is I see this all the time, when it even comes to booing. Well, you don't have to stand on your normal job on a factory line, and you don't have people behind you sledging. We're not being paid footballers' wages. We don't put you're in a normal job. You're not putting yourself in the limelight the way a footballer is. When you come in at this level of football and you come with a fan base of millions of people, you come with people that are making money off scrutinizing the game. You make everything else, the betting companies, media, everyone has their say. It's not just the fans who support the club, but it seems to be now fans who support the club aren't allowed to have to say. We have to listen to the likes of Carragher and Neville. We're not allowed to have a say whatsoever. And I'm absolutely fed up with it. You cannot apply a football club and what goes on inside a football club and the pressure and scrutiny that these guys are under to a normal thing or like working under Elon Musk. There is no comparison to it. Managers will openly say it themselves. You go and listen to any manager, and there's quite a few that are doing podcasts lately, reflecting on their career and stuff like that. Go out there and find them. They'll all say they know walking into these clubs, the pressure that they're already under, the scrutiny that they're already under. But they're more than happy to go in and take the wage packet to try. So at the end of the day, you know, to say just get off their back, it doesn't work like that. You're playing at an elite level environment in sports. It comes with pressure. It comes with demands. It comes with expectations. That's just the nature of the beast. Anyone that can't handle it in terms of inside the club, fuck off. You're not going to be good enough to take us where we want to go to or match our ambitions. Simply get out. Anyone that comes out and moans about it, you are not good enough to play at this level. You don't have the mentality. The great players, shut up and fucking get on with it. Not come out and look for excuses, blaming this section and blaming that section. You can't keep applying what goes on to normal jobs and stuff like that. There is no comparison.
And I will say that one of the things that's interesting about it is one of the things you can say about Thomas Frank is that his ambition to even try at a club like Tottenham Hotspur, I like that because it shows that he's actively trying to get better. And me personally, I always will back somebody that has that type of ambition. But that understand that these guys understand they're going into these clubs, understanding they're going to be fired if it doesn't work. Right. And that's the cold reality when it comes to it, because the longevity of a guy like Alex Ferguson or Arsene Wenger or Jurgen Klopp or Mikel Arteta, man, that's the exception to the rule. Most coaches are pretty much done by the end of year two. For whatever reason, maybe it's the nature of today's modern football, but the reality is even coaches that have the most ardent ambition, if it doesn't work out, they understand that this is the name of the game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, this is a great point here from Dennis Daly. We have a few world-class players like Romero, Van de Ven, people like that may leave at the end of the season if we don't show any ambition, if we don't really kick on in terms of Premier League this season. They leave, you're in a world of hurt, a world of trouble, and a world of pain, like we were when Harry Kane left. The only thing I hope we learn from is that we don't just acquiesce to it. We actually try and stand our ground this time. And then Kate Rixham says, Dave, I just don't think the scouting team are good enough. Look, it's something I pointed out with Johan Lang, to be honest with you, for quite some time. When I done digging into what he done at Aston Villa, the fact that they just moved him aside so quickly once they brought in the guy, from Sevilla, they've really kicked on. You see what this guy done in transfer windows of need, what he's delivered hasn't really been anywhere near good enough. For me, I think Johan Lang has to go. And to be honest with you, I'm starting to put Paratici under a bit of pressure now as well to start delivering now very, very quickly, because it is a need. I do think Paratici has done a good job to try and bring us up to a modern sort of club standard, but we need to accelerate that process a little bit quicker now. And then I did bring them up, Ange Ball. Yeah, I hear you. Look, just in general, I just went off on one there because it's just like I hear it all the time. Well, if these players work in the factory, they don't have people standing behind them booing them and stuff, and it's like, I mean, it's not like people are paying to go into the factory to stand behind them and boo them. Do you know what I mean? It's just absolutely madness. Anyway, let's kick on. Jack, let's get into it, my man. I mean, look, it's conversations we have to have, whether we like it or not. With only 3 wins in our last 14 matches. That's correct, by the way. I've gone back, calculated it all up myself just to double check. 3 wins in our last 14 games. We're out of the Carabao Cup. We have only won 1 of our last 4 Champions League games as well. That one surprised me a little bit. Jack, if Spurs do not beat Brentford at home today, is this the moment where Thomas Frank's job just becomes genuinely at risk? Would the club consider having to make a change?
Yeah, I think that's where people are probably coming from when they're being told that they're overreacting or that, people are being dramatic. Yeah. It's 3 wins in 14 games. By no stretch is good at all. We actually have, I think at the moment in the last 5-6 games, I think we genuinely have one of the worst points tallies or one of the worst records in the Premier League in the last 5 or 6 games as well. We're talking about a club that's supposed to be, everyone's saying oh, we're not, top 6, but I think most people were having us challenge around, the top 10 this season. We are not replicating form of a team that could be challenging at the minute around the top 10 areas. And also going into a very congested fixture period, you usually want to have momentum. This is kind of where I think teams that go into the December, January period, if they have momentum, they usually tend to kick on and be able to handle the difficulty of the games just happening week in, week out. If you're one of the teams that's struggling going into this December fixture period, I mean, there's probably plenty of case examples of teams that have maybe somehow figured it out, but it just makes you worried. It makes you feel okay, this could really slip away from us because we're about to head into a lot of Premier League games here. So I think that's where the pressure is coming from, really, that this is a situation where we kind of have to figure it out soon. And I don't know if it's hard to gauge with the board and it's hard to gauge with the pressure that they might be putting on Thomas Frank, but I'd imagine that they might not be that far away from the fan base. Of course, the fan base is always going to be a little bit ahead of maybe the board. They're always going to be the ones that will start to sort of sound out the noise of pressure, I think, before the board does. But like people have said in the chat, which I really agree with, regardless of how people feel about getting behind the team or anything, if tonight or today does not go well, I think this will be a pretty toxic outpour from the fans at the stadium and also the fans all over the world, really, because the form recently has been terrible. The football has been genuinely terrible. And then I think the board will have to start making some soundings about whether this guy can be capable of turning things around, really. Just
For
facing the
me,
facts, really, like, as much as people are saying get behind the team, it's like, yeah, but like, look at how we've been playing in the last 15 games. Look at the performances. Look at the record itself. Like, just even the points tally. It's simply not good enough. And do you really expect them to turn it around? Hard to say at the minute.
Well, the thing is, it's like, you mentioned it, Jack. At the start of the season, Spurs fans were very realistic. A lot of them just said, look, if we can even just get Europa League or a Europa Conference League out of this season, that'll be sign of progress. The reality is we're far from it, not in terms of point-wise in the Premier League, but if you look at all the stats, it's telling you where you're going, and it's been telling us that for quite some time. 2 international breaks ago, the argument was we're sitting in fourth, so don't worry about the stats. Well, it's caught up on us now, and we're only heading in one direction. 3 wins in our last 14 games, 1 win in our last 4 in the Champions League, already out of the Carabao Cup. It's not good. It doesn't make for good reading. I can understand the cause for giving a manager time because people are just fed up of going through the perpetual cycle of chopping and changing managers. And I fully understand them calls. I just think it's behind the wrong guy. You can't give a guy time. When some of the stats that we're reading now are there. They were stats that got Nuno sacked, stats that got Conte sacked, Jose sacked. In fact, some of them, Jose and Conte, you got sacked for less, actually. They're things they're stats that got Nuno sacked despite winning the Europa League. This just can't continue this way. At some point, we have to drag ourselves out of this. And people can say it's all about, you've got to give the manager time. It's now really on the manager and the players to pull us out of this, to warrant that time now at the end of the day. That's where I stand on it. And if today goes wrong, look, I know I'm probably not the best person to speak to because I had my reservations from the start. I have many people, shut up, Dave, you just want to be negative. It's not about me being negative. It's just about me not seeing this being a good match for Tottenham Hotspur. So I'm probably the wrong person to come because people would argue I'm biased anyway. So I'm going to shut up on this conversation now and let you guys sort of have it. But just quickly, Stevie says...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry.
Just quickly, Stevie says, people using words like Frank apologist for anyone who isn't a Frank outer does my head in just as much. And look, this is what I say, Stevie. It's got to stop this, because it was like that last year, and sexual or anthropologist, and it's happening this time around again with Thomas Frank. I'm absolutely fed up with it. Stop labeling fans in these camps and stuff. Just deal with what we're seeing and react accordingly. That's all I say. And judge Frank on what he's doing and nothing else. And I'm not going to call you a Frank apologist for wanting to give a manager time, because at the end of the day, you wanted to give every manager time, Stevie. You personally have wanted to give every manager a bit of time. You're fed up with this perpetual manager cycle. And I think you represent a lot of people like that. I get it. But what I would say is it is hard to ignore the trends, if you know what I mean, Stevie. But sorry, Jack, go on.
No, I was going to just use maybe a dumb cliche, but I do feel like the one way you could be slightly positive is pressure does make diamonds, and hopefully that can happen here with Thomas Frank, because the pressure is on. The performances have to start improving. The results have to start improving. And there have been managers in the past couple of seasons, of course, you could go much further back, but there have been managers who, when put under massive pressure, for what somehow, some way, they actually all of a sudden did turn things around. I think good case example would actually even be someone like Enzo Maresca. I remember he was under massive pressure a couple of times with Chelsea. Now all of a sudden it feels like when he did kind of have to start winning some games and the pressure was on him, I think he did start turning things around for whatever reason. I think the same thing could be said of Iraola, right? Wasn't it like the first 10 games, he didn't win a single game. They were some of the lowest points tally. Then, like, what is it, 5-6 months later, everybody wanted him as their manager. And I think there are plenty of other examples. Like Nuno, I think during his first little period there with Forest, they were not doing too hot. It was really just about surviving. And then I think going into that next season, pressure was probably on for him to be a lot better, and they ended up finishing 4th, 5th, in the Premier League. So I think there tends to be cases where managers, when put under massive pressure, find a way to sort of figure it out, and maybe also the players knowing that they're under pressure as well, all of a sudden maybe dig in their heels a bit. So that's just a positive lens to look at it. There are plenty of cases of when things are looking a little bit bleak, that all of a sudden, because of that, they kind of turn things around.
Glasner last year at Crystal Palace lost, I think, winless in their first 8. A lot of fan unrest, and all of a sudden they win the FA Cup, and now everybody wants Glasner to be their manager as well too. So, what I will say is that it's kind of an interesting place, because through the first 2 months when I looked at the schedule, it was like it actually played into our hand, because the first 2 months were, I would say, reasonably light with not a lot of European play, and it was a perfect opportunity to get this team, to pad their points tally, put themselves in a position, because I knew this portion of the schedule was not going to go well. One of the things that I actually had confidence about was the way that our defense was playing through those first 2 months, and they were organized and they were compact, and they weren't conceding cheap goals. And now all of a sudden, since coming back off the October international break, our defense has been absolutely punished. Whether it's goals from the outside, or leaking goals off that right hand side, and for whatever reason we're committing defenders when we should be holding our shape. And now even the one thing that Thomas Frank usually holds his hat on, which is being defensively organized, that looks shaky now. To the point where in that Fulham match, I mean, there was just mistakes aplenty, but and that's and for me, that is what the worry is. Is that things are slowly starting to fall apart. We can talk about attacking stats all they want, but the one thing that Thomas Frank wants to do is to be in a position where he can potentially nick a result somewhere in the second half. Sometimes by the time we start the second half, we're down 2 goals, and now all of a sudden we're trying to play our way back into it. And the results haven't been going away. And from that standpoint, it's like, you start to wonder whether or not necessarily just whether or not Thomas Frank is able to handle the pressure, but whether or not these players are actually good enough, to deliver those type of results. And so that's where I'm at right now. There's just too many things that are going on that are playing against Thomas Frank. And
like, don't get me wrong. Do I sympathize, with Thomas Frank to a certain degree? Yeah, of course I do. Is the squad perfect? No, it's not. But at the end of the day, there's always an element of a manager having to come in and get what he can out of a previous manager's squad and build on it from there. And to Stevie's point earlier on, he said Arteta won the FA Cup off the back of someone else's team. But he won the FA Cup using someone else's team. He didn't sit there screaming, I need all of my players to go and win a game. He'd done it off the back of someone else's team, and then built his own culture in the back of it. You look at Arne Slot, done it off the back of Jurgen Klopp's team. Now he's trying to do it his way by playing more of his players. Look how far, look how much tits up that's gone. And sometimes I just think, when you're a manager, do you have to come in and sort of change everything to your way? Or do you build off the back of what has been good from the previous regime and you implement what you think can help sort of kick that on? And that's where I think a lot of managers actually go wrong nowadays. They're already going in with whatever they want to do rather than going, but you know what? Yeah. This is something good I can build off. This is where I can help the team and sort of adapt and adjust to what they have. And Thomas Frank just simply ain't doing that. This has been something that's been asked to Jose, Conte, managers like that. We know they don't have the players, but they've got to use what they have to play to what they've got. And it's the same with this guy. Don't get me wrong. I understand. And again, the calls for patience are completely justified, by the way. We win today. We're back up in the top half of the league. All of a sudden, dead fans that have been calling for patience, they're sitting there going, I told you so. So it's not beyond, repair for Thomas Frank to be able to get this going and kick on. But there's certain things he's going to need to do with this squad to allow that to happen, which is take the handbrake off, give these players a bit more freedom. Off the back of the previous regime, it was all about them. They're clearly struggling to adapt, to listen to how good Wolves are and how we're going to contain Wolves and teams like that. They don't want to hear it. When you're Frank and you're stepping to a bigger club, you're managing bigger players with bigger egos. That's just the way it is. With Thomas Frank's thing. He has that underdog, that small club mentality. I need everyone to buy in here. No dickhead policy, which in hindsight, and you look at it, it's not a bad philosophy to have. But that's something that has to change when you come to a bigger club because of the egos you have to deal with. I've heard countless of times the likes of Ferguson, Mourinho's, and Conte's even giving certain players, more so your forward players, actually, to be honest with you, that sort of extra leeway because they're the star. They have that notion about themselves. But in order to get the best out of them, the rules are different for them. You go back to Ferguson, Cantona. The rules were different for Cantona than everyone else in the squad. And that was just it at the end of the day. And I'm not sure Thomas Frank is also going to adapt in that regard. And when I look at it, and you look what we're seeing on the pitch, I just personally starting to think these players don't really want this guy in charge. I think that's just my opinion. But look,
but doesn't that say more about the players? Because that would be what the third straight manager they got fired. But like that, to me, that says more about the players than the actual team.
No, look, 100%. Look, at the end of the day, I don't give these players a free pass, and they're not getting a free pass. Vicario got booed. Everyone says, don't, when it comes to getting rid of Frank, don't forget about the players. But when fans put the pressure on the players, you can't do that. Why are you booing them? You know what I mean? It's just hypocritical. It's absolutely madness. It's absolutely madness. I would take this from Aura Faye says, the manager and players need to put their big boy pants on and go out and do what is needed to get a win. No excuses. Coys. Absolutely spot on. I'm sick of manager, players, and personnel from inside the club coming out. You, the fan, are the problem, but we still need you to buy your ticket, season tickets, all the merch and all, so we can continue on what we're doing. No, shut the fuck up. We're funding this football club. You get out and perform for us. How about that? But big up, Faye. Really appreciate that. We've also got this from Sugar Ray WBC. Sugar Ray Leonard, WBC champion, my man. Says, I'm at the stadium already and I'm feeling optimistic. Come on, you Spurs. Well, Sugar Ray, I'd love for you to put into the chat what the atmosphere is like around, actually, because that is something I'm genuinely interested in. Spurs fans nervous, they angry, they're up for it. Let us know in the comments, my man, because we're going to live our match day experience in the build-up through you today. So put in the comments and let us know how they're feeling. Jack, anything you want to say?
Well, hopefully that there is a lot of pressure going into this game, that then there is that nervous optimism, like knowing that, okay, the players really got to show up today. Like they really need to put in a decent performance and we need a good result today. So maybe the fans already going in can have that. I think there will be nerves, but maybe just have that sort of positive manifestation of like, okay, like we really need a win today. So I'm going to sort of get behind these players. I'm going to get behind this team and see if they can churn out a result. So I imagine actually a lot of fans are going into it maybe just feeling like, okay, kind of need to win this game here. So you're kind of already going into it maybe with a slight version of some positivity. But I imagine Sugar Ray is a more calm and cool-headed fan than maybe some of ourselves here. But I like the mentality going into it. Feeling like you're optimistic of a win. I feel like we have to win this game, so I'm also in a similar boat. I feel like we need to win today, so I'm kind of feeling like we probably will.
Look, this is the thing as well, despite the trends that are going on, this is where I do sort of understand Stevie. Despite the trends and all the stats smacking me in the face, you got to remember, I'm reading this every day, by the way. It's just constantly smacking me in the face. I still roll out of the bed on match day going, today's the day we turn it around. I hope, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to lie, my belief in it is starting to wane, but I will always hope. So big up, Sugar Ray. Really appreciate it. Everyone in Chicking seemed happy. Well, that's good to see. What did you get out? What did you get out of Chicking? You got to let us know, my man. You can't do this to me. Did you get the chicken burger? Did you get, some chicken on a bone? Let me know, my man. Big yourself up, Sugar Ray.
What's Chicking?
It's a fast, it's like a chicken shop that's across the street, basically from the from the stadium on the high road. Yeah, it's very very famous, almost a staple, really.
Controversial. Jack's not a huge fan, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think it's a tad bit overrated, but it is a staple. Yeah,
I've been there a few times over the years. I do think every time I return, gradually getting worse. But then again, there's a lot more fans in around the match day now for them to serve and stuff. So obviously a bit of quality is going to be sacrificed. We've also got Kate and Jimbo in the house. Good to see you. Hopefully you're keeping well as well. Good to see you in the building. But look, guys, I'm going to throw out maybe... I'm not going to do these questions individually because I do have other things I want to talk about before lineups come out. So I'm just going to throw them out there, and you can pick up whatever bits and pieces you want. Same with you guys at home. Put your answers in the chat. I mean, has Frank shown enough progress or identity yet with the team? Would changing managers fix anything at Tottenham Hotspur? I think that's also a very valid question. Or would it just restart the same cycle, which is why the likes of Stevie and all have pointed out in the chat? Is the squad good enough to expect more, or are the fans' expectations unrealistic? But also, how much patience is acceptable for a manager in the Premier League to get things right, I suppose. I know there's a lot to take on there, but whoever wants to stab, have a go.
I think changing managers at this stage can be dangerous if there isn't someone that can step into the job straight away, start delivering results, and then also might be able to deliver, I think, the football that people clearly are craving. Like I mentioned earlier, I think this season has really reflected that we do seem to prefer at least some attacking football, at least some progression. I think there's more of a tolerance that if results aren't there, that at least there is somewhat of an identity that we can sort of get behind that feels like, it's a positive sort of style of play. So I think you need to make sure that if you were to bring in another manager, that they're able to deliver that relatively quickly. But then also considering where the results are at, I think they would need to pick up results decently quickly as well. So I'm not sure who's out there at the minute that is available that can do that. So I think that is to a degree to Frank's benefit, is that if he can sort of pick up results here and there, I think they'll probably keep him in the job for that reason and show him that patience. Of course, if it really nosedives, I think you do have to have some serious conversations if the players just aren't really buying into it and they're just sort of letting him sort of drift out to sea. But that's what I would probably add, Dave, is one of the things about changing managers is you have to make sure that there is someone available that can sort of pick things up from here, especially mid-season. Like it's mid-season is dangerous, I think, as well. Like I think if you're talking about the summer, always a different story, but mid-season, it's a bit of both. They need to deliver better football, but then results, I think, need to change pretty quickly. And there's certain managers that probably need that summer. They need that preseason, and there are others that might not.
No, look, absolutely. And this is where, I sort of stated this the other day. I'm not at the point where it's anybody but Frank. I think we got sucked into that, with sacking Ange Postecoglou. Almost anybody would do just to get this guy out my club. Yeah. I'm nowhere near that with Thomas Frank, by the way. I'm more than happy to make the change if it's for the right guy. But when I actually look, and this is where Frank might actually be lucky enough to buy himself some time here. When I actually look around, it does look like clubs are very hesitant to sack their managers. It almost feels like a lot of clubs are going to wait till the World Cup is over, and managers like Thomas Tuchel, maybe potentially Pochettino, managers like that become available.
Yeah,
they're just going to try and exactly, and they're just going to try and see it through this sort of period, this season, and then make the change after the World Cup. And that might actually get Thomas Frank the time he needs, maybe potentially to sort of turn it around and get us going in some sort of good form. Because, you look at it, Liverpool, why haven't they pulled the trigger? Traditionally, he would have been gone out of there by now. Real Madrid making sounds with Xavi Alonso, but not pulling the trigger. Tottenham also in a position, there's a few clubs around. It just seems like no one's pulling that trigger because not a lot out there at the minute, and they're almost waiting until these managers from the World Cup become available to come in here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regard. But Stevie, I mean, look, I know I threw a lot of questions out there in terms of, have we shown enough progress yet? Is there enough identity there? Sort of will a new manager fix things? I mean, where are you at with it all?
Well, here's the thing, right? And I think Jack spelled it out absolutely eloquently. The difference between Tottenham Hotspur and a team like Manchester United, who last year decided to get rid of Ten Hag and replace him with Amorim, is that Manchester United still, regardless of their chaos, they're still Manchester United, and they can still sell the club with their heritage and their history to a guy like Ruben Amorim, who gave up a very good job in order to come there to try to turn that around. Tottenham Hotspur, whether we want to admit this or not, in the last 25 years, we've kind of lost some of that cachet. I hate to say it, we're not that type of club that's going to be able to do something like that. I highly suspect that Andini Areola or a guy like Oliver Glasner is not looking at Tottenham Hotspur as an upgrade over their current situations right now. And so from that standpoint, you're looking at a caretaker boss And the question is that caretaker boss going to put us in a better position than we are right now? By the way, Harry Redknapp is 75 years old at this stage, and it's like, does that make sense? And by the way, does he even want to do it? And does he believe that he can actually keep this team in a good position, right? So from that standpoint, if you go with a caretaker until the summer, with an eyeing of a guy like Tuchel or Poch or whatever the case may be, is that going to be good for this club, or is that going to push us closer to relegation? You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing with caretakers, is they're caretakers for a reason, right? And they're usually there for the last month just to kind of hold the boat, until you get to the summer window, right? Where you can actually make a move, right? We're not even to January 1st. We still have 6 months in the season. And if you go caretaker route, that brings in a whole new set of, brings in a whole new set of issues, right? So the question is like, is there a coach that we can get right now that is going to be willing to step up and steady the ship? And I don't think the answer is yes. I really don't. And when you consider that this board went out of their way to spend money to get Thomas Frank in, to spend the resources to bring his entire backroom staff to Tottenham Hotspur, like, they made a commitment. And I guess the question is whether or not they're ready to pull the plug. I see the names like Southgate and Redknapp, and it's like, are you confident that those guys come in and put us on a better position between now and the end of the season? I don't necessarily think so. Because if Gareth Southgate was great, he would already have another job.
If we get Southgate, if Southgate's lined up, I'm franking 100%, no matter how things go, no matter how bad things go. If we get Southgate, I swear to God. Stevie Fraser says 91 games lost to injury. The closest is 61 in all top 5 European divisions. Last year, everyone gave Ansham slack. Why not Frank? I think we all just so tired. I agree with you in terms of injuries. It can hinder you. I do get that. But are we guilty of rewriting history here a little bit, Stevie? Maybe you and maybe a few others gave Frank or Andrew a bit of a free pass on that, but the majority didn't. Andrew was actually blamed for all the injuries. Andrew was blamed for causing them all. So I think there's a little bit of rewriting history there, and I can go back, pull up plenty of comments and videos from the time that would suggest what I'm saying on that one, Stevie. So I think you maybe personally did, but in general, the Spurs fans didn't. The guy was blamed for the injuries. That's why I asked the question a few months in under Frank, who we blaming for injuries this year? Who's getting the blame this time around? Because, so I do think there's a little bit of that. But look, I do take your point about injuries, but what I would say is, you bring back a Madison, a Kulusevski, a Solanke, are they really going to thrive in this system on how we play going forward? I'm not quite so sure on that one, Stevie. But look, let's keep it moving, guys. Let's keep it moving, because I can't believe I have to read this out, but the Newcastle draw was our 4th straight match without a shot on target in the first half. I mean, Jack, how concerning is that? Is this a tactical caution from Frank, a lack of creativity, or players just not executing the plan?
I think you're on mute, Jack.
You're on mute, Jacko.
Sorry. I think it's massively a tactical issue, because last season, I would say the frustrating bit was, I felt like for a large part of last season and just first season, I felt like we did create plenty of chances. We were just exceptionally terrible, like, in terms of putting them away. I just felt like we were not a clinical team whatsoever. This season, I still would say we're probably not that clinical of a team. Even though the stats say different, I don't think so. I think the stats are actually heavily carried by how many set pieces, we've scored. I think that's why, the XG difference is so high, is just because, we're scoring from very low XG opportunities. So I don't really know if it's really that much down to the players being clinical, but point being is that we're not creating a lot of chances like we did previously. And we're also, I think, a team that doesn't really have very devastating forwards, either, with any of the chances that they are given or any of the breakaways. So I think it's more tactical than it is really on the players here. That's where I've said to you in the past, Dave, like, as much as I love to have questions about Richarlison, as much as I love to have questions about guys like Johnson, et cetera, and, not being good enough, when you're generating 0.03 XG, that is so damn low. Like, I don't really know if I can actually blame the players in that case. Like, that's clearly, there's an instructional issue there where things are just not being either bought in from the players to the manager, or the manager is just simply not instructing them to put them in the right positions to be able to create chances on a consistent enough basis. I think the other part too, just quickly, is that we rarely like dominate teams in their half. Like that's where also chances can come from,
Right.
is not even just always great passages of play, but just being able to control the ball in the opposition half where you are just going to be close to their penalty area for a consistent period of time. Chances will come from that. Like, even if you're just blindly crossing the ball into the box, something will fall your way eventually. It's just kind of the chaos of football. But we rarely even like seem to control the ball in the opposition half. So that's part of the reason I think why the XG is so damn low. So for me, it's almost 100% a tactical issue, because I think lots of games, if you looked at the XG of a lot of our performances in the last 2 seasons, the XG was relatively good. It was just the team was terrible at putting away the chances. So we just ended up getting punished because we were so open at the back. So I think it's hugely a tactical issue.
That's where I'm leaning towards as well, Jack, because when you look at the really low XG, and I look at things like the country mile bottom by a country mile in terms of through balls, that's an instruction. When he sees shooting from in around the area, around the edge of the box as a low risk scoring opportunity, it shows to me that's an instruction. He's almost trying to create the perfect goal to a degree, where he wants that ball put in around the 6-yard box. But then the problem was with that, we've only ever got one player attacking it. You know what I mean? So it's like his whole game plan is to get it out wide and try and cross the ball. But when you're only getting one player in the box, it almost has to be a perfect delivery. And, when you look at us outperforming our XG, that's something he done at Brentford as well. It's a common thread, but it's not a good indictment of how great we are going forward. It's actually a bad indictment that we're overperforming it so bad. It's showing that we're not creating anywhere near enough chances to really go and win these games, or do enough to really go and win these games. And when you also look at it, and when you like, if you were to take on the conversation around it being a quality issue, right? People will automatically point to Brennan Johnson, Richarlison. They're the only 2 forwards in our top 5 this season, the top goal scorers.
Yeah.
So it can't be a quality issue if they're the 2
them.
that have stepped up with the biggest numbers. When you bring in Moani, Kudus, and Simons, now many people may go, they're not elite, they're not world class, but they'll all say, well, they're better than Richarlison and Johnson. So, the fact that he's not getting enough out of the good players, I think it then stems the question to what I brought up before. Is he good at getting the best out of average players? But does he know how to handle the big players and get the best out of them? I'm not quite so sure. And when I look at that, the fact that everyone will immediately point to Johnson and Richarlison when it comes to quality, and yet they're the 2 that are producing the most out of this forward line in terms of goal scoring, it's not really so much about quality at that point. Then it really is to do with the tactics employed and the way we set up. With it being a common trend of not getting a shot on goal within 4 first halves, that's not down to quality. I'm sorry. It's just not. You see relegation teams put more on them. In fact, you've seen Chelsea put more, or you've seen Leeds put more on Chelsea midweek than what we done. And that there stinks to me then. And by the way, they've got Calvert-Lewin, who no Spurs fan would have said, let's bring him in this summer. So it's not a quality issue. Therefore, when I look around the Premier League, it all stems to a tactical problem. And that's the best I can sort of break it down. And I'd actually encourage everybody. There's a channel out there called the Overlap Breakdown, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And there's a guy on there, and he's done a fantastic job explaining everything around the Thomas Frank tactics. And I would urge everybody, if you can, to get across and have a listen to that, because I think it's a very fair and balanced sort of discussion around it.
100%.
The interesting thing, though, Jack, is you're 100% right. Last year we just weren't clinical. But the other thing that we did well was playing out of pressure last year. And when we were, whether it was playing down the wings or actually trying to progress the ball into soft areas, a little bit more directly, at least Ange had the wherewithal to try to at least get into attacking areas. This year, Dave, you highlighted the fact that we're dead last by a country mile when it comes to weighted passes into the box. But I believe we're second to last when it comes to actually crosses into the box from dangerous areas as well too. And it also suggests that even when we do find our way into an opposition half, we're conceding soft areas. We're conceding positions of strength to either move the ball sideways or play some horseshoe game while we're cycling the ball. back through our back line, trying to shift defenses and trying to progress the ball back into areas that we've already conceded. But the other thing is when we're not playing the ball long from goal kicks and we're trying to, when we're trying to play it out of the back, there is no movement within the in the midfield, and teams end up collapsing on those two double pivot midfielders, essentially clogging passing lanes to try to play out of. And so the ball either moves wide to the left or the right. And so what ends up happening is either the ball gets played back from Pedro Porro or Destiny Udogie, or the ball goes long. And what ends up happening, the ball ends up going centrally to a guy like Richarlison or Kolo Muani, but he's doubled. And so we end up conceding possession anyway. Right, there is no progressive movement from the back to the middle to the front, and for whatever reason, we're not giving ourselves at least a good opportunity to play the ball in, because we're always making the same goddamn mistakes either from deep or whether we're in the attacking half. And so from that standpoint, it has to be 100% a tactical, a tactical issue. But that being said, I'm going to ask you guys this question. Let's just say that today Thomas Frank comes out on the front foot. Okay. And for whatever reason, for the first 25, 30 minutes, we're actually putting pressure. We're getting shots, and we're getting shots from good areas, whether that's from inside the 18 or from outside the 18. Is he conceding that he potentially got it wrong, that his tactics got it wrong? Like if he was just to do something that he's completely not known for.
If you're going to take the handbrake off all of a sudden, is basically what you're saying?
Correct.
Would that be an admission of getting things wrong?
Correct.
I think that would just be admission that he's under pressure to start delivering more attacking football. I think he's been well aware. He's even said it himself, as much as he hasn't improved things, he hasn't said, oh, we are playing attacking football. He said, no, we're trying to work on being much better going forward. He keeps mentioning, even though I think it's sometimes that Twitter tactico kind of nonsense, he does say sort of like, we need to be much better in phase 2 and phase 3. He says that a million times, and we're trying to be working on that. So as much as he hasn't been improving it, he seems to be saying that like we are trying to be better at it. It's just whether they actually will do it or not is the big question. So I think hopefully he can improve it, because I think he's under pressure to do it, but it's not like he's shying away from it. To be fair to him, he hasn't been just making up complete nonsense, saying like, oh, I think we have been playing really good, amazing attacking football. He hasn't necessarily said that. He's been saying, yeah, we have.
Do you know what my gripe is with that though, then, Jack? Don't come out before the Fulham game, before the Arsenal game, before the Chelsea game.
I agree.
So we're going to have a go. We're going to be aggressive.
And then we're
going to go at them and then produce the shit that we've produced.
I agree.
Don't do that. Just can stick to, I know we've got problems right now. We're working on it. Stick to that. But what you don't do is come out before games and get fans, because that's where this comes about, right? That's where these conversations come about. It simply has. And it just frustrates me. For instance, he's there with James Lawrence Alcott before North London Derby. I love pressing. I love being aggressive. And we sat off Arsenal for 90 minutes. I'm left sitting there scratching my head. I'm like, so he's saying what he loves to do, but we're not executing it. And look, you can then go to, is that the players not executing it? That's a fair question. But when you look at the way we're set up out of possession, it's not exactly striking, that he is really setting his team up to really go and be that aggressive the way he loves. And this is where I get confused with Thomas Frank. He's shown at the early parts of the season, we can play like that. But he's changed it up. He's completely regressed in that regard. And that's where I get really frustrated with the guy, because I was enjoying myself when we went at Burnley, pressed the living shit out of them at home, put 3 by them. I enjoyed myself in that Man City game where we didn't sit off them and play the back 5 like everyone thought we would. We went at them, we pressed them aggressively. Papa Massar heavily involved, forced them into errors, ended up beating them 2-0. I was enjoying myself. But then somewhere along the line, he said to the team, stop going after the ball, sit back and stuff like that.
Right.
And that's where I cannot buy into this any longer. I'm sorry. My whole lifetime as a Spurs fan, we've never had the squads of a Man City that they have now, or United or Chelsea or an Arsenal. But we've always gone and had a fucking go and tried to play football the right way. That's where, and tried to go at teams, and that's where I can't get with this pragmatic shit. It's like, I could understand if he's like, look, we're not good enough to go helter-skelter. We are going to play on the counter. But we were actually executing counterattacks, so I could actually see how he's trying to play on the counter. but I don't see it. And that leads it to then the narrative being it's so defensive because there's no counterattack. There's no concise, clear plan on how we're going to do it. Like, for instance, like Nuno implemented at Forest, you knew exactly how they were going to counterattack you. There's no game plan out of possession. We just sit our two pivots in the box beside the centre backs. Then the other three come back on top of that, and then the two strikers are sitting on top of that. So then when we do go to clear the ball, there's no one up there to get hold of it or relieve pressure. Yeah. And that leads it to being so pragmatic. And that's where I can't get with this shit. I have to see some of that stuff change. I'm okay with him being more defensive-minded as a coach. I'm fine. But show me how you're going to counterattack. Show me how you're going to turn that ball over. Like, you look at most teams in the Premier League, they employ a man-for-man press. We're one of the only teams that don't. And we're getting railroaded. We're conceding goals left, right, and center. Even if he doesn't want to go man for man, trigger press. Use that one player who you think is the guy that's weakest on the ball and fucking go after that. But we don't do that, and that's where I can't get with this. And if we keep going the way we're going, it is doomed for failure.
It's almost like we're conserving energy on both sides of the ball. That's maybe also the frustrating bit. Is like when we're going forward, we barely send anyone forward. You've seen Brennan Johnson, jogging, when he needs to be making an overlapping run. You're seeing only a couple of guys, have the willingness to get forward. And then the same thing defensively. Like defensively, we also seem to sort of be conserving energy, just shuffling from side to side, dropping off, not really engaging at any stage. And I could say that's also been a frustrating bit is you have to show energy at some side of the ball, either when you have the ball or when you're without the ball. You need to sort of be showing that intensity and that energy. And that's, to your point, that is the frustrating thing is he says things like that. He goes like, no, we're going to show intensity. We're going to show bravery, right? He always uses the bravery word. And it's like, yeah, but we're not showing bravery on either side of the ball, either defensively or in possession. So that's one of the frustrating bits. I agree.
I do have two more questions with stats here. I don't know whether you want to go into them or whether we should skip on to the Shavy Simons conversation, actually, because I think it's an important one to have. Jack, what do you think we should do?
Hard to say, Dave. I mean, I would just say maybe just quickly on Shavy Simons, just because I brought it up in the predicted lineup, and we're about to find out about 10 minutes time. Huge
we'll go with
worries.
Shavy Simons, though.
Well, just maybe Stevie and you can just bounce off this, and I think I'm probably not saying anything that unique here. Probably just analyzing just the way it is. If he doesn't start this game, huge question marks about whether Frank wanted this guy, whether this guy is doing enough for him in training, or he's just not the right number 10 for him to use or whatever. Or maybe Thomas Frank doesn't like number 10s, for the most part, because it did take him a while to incorporate Damsgaard. I think he's even admitted himself. He said it took about 2 seasons for him to start really getting the tune out of him in the way that he wanted. If Shavy Simons doesn't start this game, especially after he's been annoyingly asked over the last couple of weeks why he isn't playing as much as he would probably like, I think you would have to ask huge question marks about that signing, to be honest, and huge question marks about Shavy Simons in general, about how he's not been able to convince Thomas Frank to be playing, really.
Well, look, I think you raised a fair question around it being a signing. Yeah. But what I will say is he's not going to have 2 years at Tottenham for Shavy Simons to start producing. That's just not going to happen. We are not Brentford, so he's going to have to realise that.
I agree.
We're just going to take 1 or 2 more comments here because I am going to bring up some stats around Shavy Simons, actually. Sugar Ray, WBC says, raving report number 1. Good vibes in the South Stand, especially with Gooners losing. Well, that's a good start today. So then, Sugar Ray, that is a very good start, and hopefully that continues over into the stands. We've also got Breezy Gas starting to feel sorry for you lads. I haven't talked about this team all week. Hope we can get 3 points on the board to move up the table and give you a break from the negativity. Come on, you Spurs. And look, I think this is one maybe common misperception around streamers in general. And I'm not even going to say it's Spurs related. It's not. I see it happening with lots of other clubs. When things are going bad, streamers are operating off the talking points that are put out, the stats that are out there. And it's almost like fans of that club want them to start inventing stuff to start being fake positive about. And it's just sort of like, all of a sudden then it just gets, you just love living in negativity. You just want to be negative. I don't. I want to win games of football. That's all I want to do. When I'm at my best and I'm most happiest, Spurs are winning. You see what 1 win does to me. puts me on cloud 9. You know what I mean? All I want to do is just start winning games. I don't want to be sitting here digging out the players, digging out the manager, constantly reading you guys all the negative stats that are out there. I don't want to do it. But the reality is, it'd be disingenuous if I didn't. And
to be fair, it's good therapy.
It is good therapy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it saves my missus and, to a degree, my dad as well. It saves their heads from having to listen to me and stuff like that. Maybe my dad is more willing to and stuff like that, because it's good therapy for him. But in general, none of us want to sit here and be negative. We want to win games. And that's just it at the end of the day, my man. But look, really appreciate the comment. And Spurs GCTV as well. Good to see you in the building. The lineups will be out in about 5-6 minutes time. So, stick with us. We'll get them up on screen. If there's any questions you guys want us to answer towards the end of the show, feel free to get them in. Don't usually do this and probably should start doing this more than enough. Please start smashing that like button. Helps us out massively. If you're watching on a mobile phone, there's this new thing called hype. Eddie always does it for us. So big up, Eddie. If you could hype us as well. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but it supposedly helps. And if you want to get in a super chat or anything like that, or grab yourself a channel membership, feel free to do that. And I know Jimmy Hotspur says, as well, he brought up a brilliant comment where he's like, Dave, the fact that we haven't had any shots on target in the last first half of games, is that maybe to do with around Shavy Simons not starting? Well, Stevie, these stats make for interesting reading.
True.
This is a great start doing the rounds this week, Stevie, that Spurs have been far more successful when Shavy Simons starts. 9 games, 6 wins, 1 draw, 2 defeats, 18 goals scored, and only 6 conceded, with a win rate of 66% when Shavy Simons starts. Without him starting, 9 games, 0 wins, 4 draws, 5 defeats, only 11 goals, with 18 goals conceded, a win rate of 0%. Given that contrast, Stevie, does Thomas Frank need to find a way to get Shavy Simons into the starting 11 no matter what?
100%. 100%. And by the way, for those that were watching Thomas Frank's press conference from earlier this week, I think he was asked about Shavy Simons and why he's been missing from the starting 11. Was it an issue with training? Was it something that was surrounded around that? And Thomas Frank has said he's actually been one of his best performers in training. Like, he's been training phenomenally. And it's like, well, what is the issue? It's like, because, apparently it's a matchup issue. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense, because some of the teams that we had played were actually perfect matchups for him to actually start and get a good 60, 70 minutes, especially in that Fulham game as well, too. It was kind of mind-boggling, considering there have been areas where you can get Shavy Simons in order, to make an impact. But I will say this, I do not think Thomas Frank's tactical setup and the way that he wants to play this high possession game is conducive to a player like Shavy Simons, especially coming over from Red Bull Leipzig, where they were a very direct attacking team, where the ball was actually, the ball is actually being, progressed through the midfield, where he can get played onto a ball, where he can get played into soft places, where he's in 1v1, where he can actually, whether it's underneath or whether it's attacking through the right side of channel, 1v1 being his man and actually making an impact. When you see that, the way that Shavy Simons is being used at Tottenham, especially if we get to those central areas, he comes down and makes a touch. And usually the ball goes back. And then so first of all, you're pulling him away from goal just to begin with. To start an attacking sequence, you're taking him away from where he needs to be, which is near the goal. He comes down to make a touch, and when he's got to recover, where is he positioned? Essentially away from goal off the left-hand side. So you're taking him continuously away from the goal, where he absolutely needs to be. He needs to be in and around that goal to actually have an impact. Now, what I will say, though, at the very least, with Shavy Simons on the pitch, he's actually going to try to do something. He's actually going to try to make an impact, whether it's 1-2s on the left-hand side to give himself space so he can play something in. At least he's still going to do that. Or if he is trying to progress something, he's going to make a run and draw defenders in and try to do something with the ball that's actually going to put Spurs in a better opportunity to score a goal. From that standpoint, you can see that he's actually trying. But that being said, from the beginning, I was wondering whether, like me personally, I still think Shavy is a phenomenal player, and I actually think he could be a very good player for Spurs. I just don't know if Shavy Simons is actually a match for Thomas Frank.
Like, here's the problem I have, right? You know, you look at a lot of the stats going forward, and automatically a lot of people will go, we don't have the players. We don't have that guy that can create chances. But when you look at the stats that I've read out there around Shavy Simons, it's clear we are better going forward and we create more with him in the team. Now, I'm not excusing Shavy. There has been some shocking stuff I've seen that guy do. You know, some of the flicks he does at times pisses me off. You know, it's clear that he's struggling with the physicality of the Premier League. I fully understand it. You know, but at the end of the day, let's not pretend that Frank didn't want a player of this ilk. He went after Eze. He went after Morgan Gibbs-White, 2 players that can play that position. So he wanted a player of this ilk, but yet he's not using them. That's where my problem comes in. You know, he can sit there and say, we're working on the attacking phase of play. And this guy's supposed to be a stats guy, by the way. You know, well, how's he denying the stats that when Shavy Simons is in the team, we score more or we create more? Now, of course, it's skew-whiffed slightly, you know, the likes of Copenhagen. That one's one of them.
Doncaster is one of them, too.
Doncaster is another one. So it's skew-whiffed slightly. But the reality is we're a better team when Shavy Simons plays. And I don't want to hear him ever come out and say he doesn't have that type of player in the team. Yes, he does. He just doesn't know what to do with it or how to use them. It's that simple, in my opinion. You know, it's been like that from the very beginning. And I don't think Frank has helped it. He should have recognized when he's hanging out on the left for the first few games, play him off the left wing. That's where he feels he can get time and space on the ball and make his impact. Help him settle in that way. But because of the way Thomas Frank sees the game, he's never going to help a player like that settle in. I'll go back to Joe Cole under Jose Mourinho. Joe Cole went to Chelsea with huge fanfare, being this generational talent. But Jose Mourinho just simply didn't know what to do with him, where to put him in the team or allow him that sort of freedom. But, of course, Jose Mourinho had other excellent players around that could fit into his system and stuff like that. But right now, needs must, pressure on. Everyone wants to see Tottenham going forward. In my lifetime, all I've seen is great wingers, great forward players, goals galore. And I want to see more of the same. I can't sit here and watch this shit. And the reality is, he does have a player there that he can use to try and solve the problem. He chooses not to. And it could come back to his own detriment. And I would argue, going at a team at home like Brentford, where the onus is on us, he's got to play today. He has to find a way of fitting him in this team and playing him. At the end of the day, the reason why we bought Shavy is so that we can get the ball to his feet and dictate the tactics. But the way Thomas Frank sets up and plays is never, ever going to get the best out of Shavy unless he changes it. You look at the clubs Shavy has played for: Barcelona, PSG, PSV, Leipzig, Holland. They all play a certain brand of football, build out from the back, football to the passing game. Thomas Frank is playing long ball. It's like playing long ball to a fucking dwarf. It's like saying, Thomas, there's the dwarf, put him in camp, play your long ball. It's absolutely madness. Thomas Frank needs to adapt and try and get the best out of Shavy Simons. This whole argument he doesn't have the players is nonsense. You know, everyone goes after Kudus. He's not as great as we say he is. He's joint top of the Premier League assist chart right now. You know, so there's clearly a player in there and a lot more than what he's currently showing us. The problem is with Shavy, with Kudus, we tire the fucker out. We use him so relentlessly to be that out ball all the time, to get his ball back to goal. We never play him going forward, by the way. Never play the ball in a forward motion to the guy. We play the ball into him all the time with his back to goal. And then we're asking him then to hold off people and drag us up the pitch. And then when it comes to 70, 80 minutes, he's bollocks, and he no longer has that. Because, by the way, Stevie, you know this as well, that's physically demanding, by the way. Constantly having people coming up your backside trying to take the ball off you, hold people up, drag you up the pitch. He's doing that 5-10 times a game. So by the time 78 minutes comes around, he's bollocks, and people are looking at him then to provide that spark, to provide that magic. Kolo Muani, there's a player in there that can score us goals. We've seen against PSG, you give the guy a half chance, he's going to fucking bury it. How many chances do we put him in on goals? How many chances do we give him a game?
Right.
And this is why I keep screaming too. It is more down to the tactics and the way we're playing and what he's employing, and not getting the best out of the players we did bring in to alleviate the problem in the first place, more so than these players not really being good enough. And that's just where I'm at with it. And no one can really sort of change my mind on that, to be honest with you, unless he changes the way he's going to approach and take the handbrake off. If he does want to employ this crossing game, no problem. Then instruct your cam to get in the box. Instruct one of that double pivot then to get in there and make up the numbers. Crossing it to one player in the box, is why we don't score goals.
Correct. And I know how this is going to sound before I say it, but that being said, I listen to coaches and I listen to I listen to what their tactical view on, especially coaches that come into teams that are replacing, that are replacing a guy that got fired. And what's interesting about it is, I spent a good 6 months listening to Sean Deitch talk and his philosophy on things. And it's like, yes, like there is a want to play your vision and style of football. But that being said, if you go into a team and they're better equipped and they're better suited to play more of a direct game, then why would you take away the strengths of the players because you want to play a certain style of football that's not conducive to it, right? And it was one of the things that, the reason why Ange Postecoglou failed at Nottingham Forest is because he had a team that was literally, a pragmatic counterattacking team under Nuno, and it just did not work. They were not equipped to play that type of game. And so when Sean Deitch replaced him and came in and said, okay, cool, so we're just going to continue to play this, to play this type of football, because at least we're going to have better results. And the reality is I wonder if it's, an ego issue when it comes to coaches, and I think it probably is. But the reality is, it's like, if you're coming into a team that has certain attributes to play a certain style, you would probably want to set your team up to play to the biggest strengths of how your players actually play the game, instead of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And it's something that I've never understood. And it's like, especially if you're Thomas Frank and this is your first step up into an absolute massive club, why would you put yourself behind on the back foot coming out? And it's like, yeah, we had a little bit of a manager bounce, but everybody understands how Thomas Frank is going to play, and the league adapted to him so quickly, and there was no adjustment. And now all of a sudden we're in this situation where it's like we're praying for an adjustment. Like the reason why, it took forever for Ange to actually finally grasp it, and when he did, we won a trophy. And it still got him sacked. You know what I mean? And it's like, for me, it just boggles my mind.
Absolutely. Well, look, guys, the lineups is out here. We'll go through. We've got Vicario in goals, Pedro Porro at right back, Jed Spence at left back, Van de Ven and Romero make up your centre-back partnership. Then you move into midfield. You have Archie Gray and Rodrigo Bentancur as your double pivot. And then you have Shavy in your number 10. I'm assuming Richarlison off the left, Kudos off the right, and Mawani through the middle. And I already know how we're going to play, and I think it's going to be quite easy to stop, to be brutally honest. With Jed Spence at left back, that means that ball is going to be constantly rotated over to the other side of the pitch, and it's going to be all on Pedro Porro and Kudos like it's been all this season. That's why statistically they're the two most creative players in the team. And we're going to look to cross that ball from the right-hand side and get Richarlison coming in to make a double, in the middle with Mawani to try and score goals. To be honest with you, so predictable, and I'm so disappointed, to be honest. It should have been Udaber and Adogi down the left-hand side, Spence and Kudos down the right, Shavy in the middle. That way you're going at the avenue. We have cut off two of them, and we're just going down the right-hand side. I'm already worried. However, Brentford aren't good away from home, so that gives me a little bit of hope going into today's game. But I can tell you now, it is going to be right side reliant today to break them down. Jack, thoughts?
I'm a little bit disappointed that he's left out Bergvall. I think Bergvall had a really good performance against Newcastle, especially in the second half. And I think when Bergvall is played a little bit deeper instead of maybe as a number 10, I do feel like he can help sort of with the progression of this game. I am also surprised that he's gone for Bentancur 2 games in a row now. That means that Palhinha, surprisingly has been left on the bench now for the past 2 games, which I'm not sure if there's something to read into that, but that is interesting that he's preferring Bentancur. I would say this in my predicted lineup. I did say, even though I would have preferred to see Odebear and Udogi down the left-hand side and then Kudus, of course, on the right to bring that balance, he does seem to like doing Kolo Muani and Richarlison. And I think maybe against teams like Brentford, who will play a back 5 or have a lot of big, tall center backs in the box, perhaps having 2 guys that are willing to get into the box and be sort of those threats in the penalty area could be helpful and could be useful. I'm just saying there's maybe some logic to it, but I wouldn't have done it personally myself. I think he should have gone with just one striker, then maybe later on in the game, if need be, bring on a second striker instead of starting with the 2 strikers. But there is a chance, and maybe I'll look it up now, but there is definitely a strong chance that Brentford might be playing a back five, so maybe that was why he's gone for two strikers in this one. But
Yeah,
Archie Gray over Sarr and Bergvall for me, I think is baffling, really.
Even Archie Gray over Paolini, I think that's a huge. I look at the end of the day, I get
it's just
Paolini
another case of like a lot of rotation. Like, Jet Spence coming into the team instead of Udogie. It's just all this rotation, man. It's like it's been his undoing, in my opinion.
But the only reason why we're rotating, Jack, is because the guy doesn't know his best 11. We are in December.
He even admitted to it just in the recent press conference. He said so. He says he doesn't know his best 11, which is crazy.
Concerning for me. It's absolutely concerning for me. But look, people at home, let us know what you make of the lineup. Of course, people have pointed out there is no Destiny Udogie on the bench, which maybe alludes to an injury and maybe forced to start Jed's bench in that regard, which I suppose is fair enough. We'll wait and see what Thomas Frank, you'd probably be asked about in a minute pre-game. Stevie, thoughts on the lineup, my man, and how do you see this game going today? The big game.
First and foremost, I absolutely do not like this lineup whatsoever. And, the reality is whether you guys agree to this or not, Rodrigo Betancourt actually had one of his worst performances against Newcastle. And the fact that he's back in there, I don't know, man. I'm one of those guys that feel like João Palhinha is our best midfielder by proxy, and he should probably be in the starting lineup regardless. And I understand, man, maybe the last couple performances hasn't. His last couple starts haven't been great, but that being said, he is a proven winner, a proven veteran who actually can figure out a way out of it. Me personally, I have no idea what's going on with Rodrigo Betancourt, but that dude is a shell of himself at this stage. And I tend to agree with Jack when it comes to Archie Gray. I love Archie Gray, but that being said, it's like you're trying to figure out ways to progress the ball through the midfield. And me personally, I kind of like the idea of Pap Sarr, but. All in all, the fact that Pedro Porro gets another start, and it's clear that dude is gassed. Also brings in some other questions about of whether or not Destiny Udogie, whether something's going on with Udogie to the fact that Jed Spence is playing again on the left hand side. Me personally, this is I know exactly how this is going to go. We're gonna be easy to defend, there's going to be a good chance that we're going to go through that first half again without any type of progression in the attack. Would it be surprise you that the onus is going to fall on the defense to be perfect again? We're going to slip up and concede somewhere in that first half, and then we're going to be trying to scramble the entire second half to try to nick a result against a team like Brentford, who quite honestly is not a great traveling team. So I got to be honest with you. I predicted 2-1 Spurs, but now I'm seeing this lineup. I'm like, maybe at best 1-1.
Yeah, look, and judging by the comment section, looking at a lot of people aren't really too enamored with it either. Look, I know I pointed out the Udogie one, but I suppose if he is injured and he's not in the squad, probably, and the fact that Ben Davies is in there, by the way, on the bench, return of Davies, probably alludes to that maybe Udogie isn't fit, so maybe he's being forced into that. But, this is where I'm at with Stevie, and this is something that I've been trying to say a long time. Even from the start of the season, I warned against the over-rotation in the front line. Everyone was happy clapping it, saying it was a great thing, keep players fresh, it will avoid injuries. Well, that theory is proven to be gone out of the window. And my whole argument against it was purely you're not allowing players to play themselves into form, understand each other's game, build up patterns of playing, stuff like that. And that's why we're here in December searching for a front line that works. And this is my point, Stevie. I'm with you. Play Shavy, Colo, Kudus, and Wilson / Tell relentlessly until they work it out. And that's where I'm at. But, and also the fact that he keeps rotating that front line, it's not just the front line, the midfield as well. Like Paulinho's our best midfielder. He's dropped from the lineup. Don't understand that one. That's mind-boggling. And even though he is a defensive type of midfielder, he's still inside the top 5 goal scorers this season. So he contributes in terms of goals. When goals is the aim of the game today, I think bad decision on Thomas Frank's behalf. Now, of course, could be proven wrong. Hoping I'm proven wrong. But the over-rotation is absolutely killing us. Everyone's starting to say it now. Sugar Ray's in the chat saying, it seems like, no, that's Adam. Big up, Adam. Sugar Ray says he's not letting anyone play themselves into form. It's infuriating. And
I agree.
Look, this is why we are searching here, for goals where we are right now. Is because it's constant. Like Johnson didn't start for 4 games, find himself in the team midweek. It's just you're scratching your head, like you can't really see what he's trying to do, or and and I'll be honest, the reason why he doesn't know his best lineup is because he over rotated earlier on in the season. That's why he doesn't know his best lineup now, and that's a huge concern for me. By the way, that we're at December. This is his 30th game managing Tottenham from start preseason all the way through to now. It's nearly a full Premier League season. He's had more than enough time to know what his best lineup is and start producing more. The pressure's fucking on. It's going to be heavily reliant down this right-hand side tonight. Yep. I don't want to hear anyone going kudos as being greedy, because it's all on him today. Hopefully he can turn up and produce something. But look, guys, I think we're going to leave it there, and we will be back for the watch along starting in half an hour's time. We're going to let Jack go on, by the way, fair play to Jack, guys. 4 a.m. Got himself out of bed unexpectedly today to come on earlier. And I'll be brutally honest. If anyone asked me to go on a stream at 4 a.m. in the morning, I wouldn't be able to string 2 sentences together. I wouldn't even be able to think about an answer. So massive credit to fucking Jack stepping up today and coming on here today. So
I should have checked in with you. I was planning on being at least, I was going to pop in about 30, 45 minutes in, but I should have checked in with you beforehand about, whether you needed me from the start. But like I said, I'm glad that I've probably gotten in sooner rather than later, because this is just a massive game, really. Like, I know it's only Brentford, but seriously, we're desperate for a win. So just need to wake up early anyways. Early bird gets the worm.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Jack. I've done the 4 a.m. 4:30 streams, and I'll say this: by 2 o'clock, you're going to be in desperate need of a nap.
Yeah, sometimes it does hit me in a wave. Like if I all of a sudden sit down or lay down for like a quick second, I genuinely fall asleep for a good couple of hours. But other times, the adrenaline just kicks in, and then I go on with my day. So it's very dependent sometimes.
Yeah, there's no amount of Red Bull or caffeine that's going to touch that tire.
Sometimes there is. You never know. There's a secret formula. Big up, man. And please, everybody, subscribe over to Stateside Footy, please. Subscribe over to Steve's channel for making the show possible today.
And he's another one that gets up early, by the way. Again, 7 a.m. If anyone asks me to be on a stream at 7 a.m., forget about it. I haven't had my tea, my toast, or anything like that, so I couldn't even think. So again, a massive credit to Stevie as well.
But this is part and parcel, man. I'm up at 3 o'clock every day for work, right? So, I can't even sleep in past 6 o'clock anymore. So it is what it is, right? So 7 o'clock, I'm wide-eyed, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed by 7. So it is what it is.
No, exactly. It is what it is. But look, at the end of the day, we all do this for the love of this club. Hopefully, they give us something to love tonight, because it is the season of giving. It is the season to be jolly. So Spurs, it's on you. Make me jolly. Guys, massive thank you to these two boys here today. Please get over to subscribe to Stevie's channel and make sure you give him a good subscribe boost there. Also want to say a massive thank you to RFA and also Sugar Ray as well for the extra support today. I really do appreciate it. I know it's not easy and around this expensive time of year, so thank you very, very much. And to all you members out there who continue to support us as well, a massive thank you to you guys and everybody that's tuned in today to be here with us. I really appreciate every single one of you. We'll see you back here at 2:30 for the watch along. Go and get something to eat. Go and get a drink. Maybe not 6 deep. It's not time for that, but you could get 2 deep. And we'll see you back here for the watch along. Let's fucking go. Come on, you
Come
Spurs.
on, you Spurs. See you soon, everybody.
Forever.
Two